Main Speedcubes of 2023, if you're hearing noise right now, it's because of my 3D printer. New puzzle upcoming. And also, this video is actually being filmed before NTU Welcome 2023, but I will probably upload it after the competition, and I might include competition footage in this video itself. So first, starting with some random stuff. I did not get into clock in 2022, but I have judged clock in one competition, and I designed a clock cover based on some cubers requests, as well as like the problems that I encountered while judging clock, which is mainly the clocks falling over and the pins resetting. So this one is designed to be just slightly wider than the clock. There are also some rails inside this clock cover so that the pins can stick out and not be pressed accidentally on either side. It's also designed to minimize the print time and the material. And also, after 14 years of cubing, with 2023 being the 15th year, I finally decided to get a timer in 2022. You have probably seen this timer already. I decided to get a Qi timer because, like, firstly, CubeWorks physical store have lots of them, and secondly, this one is also sufficiently advertised for its durability. I'm actually competing in 2x2 in this competition, and this is just the same cube that I've used every year. These are Tangpo with no mods, no magnets. For 3x3, I use a RS3M. This one has core corner magnets and is also Maglev. So it does have a bit of the repulsion boost if you pass 45 degrees, because the corner magnets would repel the Maglev magnet that is underneath the center here. I've actually given my previous main, the Meilong 3, to a friend, so I don't really have that many good 3x3s at the moment, and at most this is my only usable 3x3. For 4x4, I use an Aofu WR with core corner magnets. I do think this one is really good because, like, the outer layer of the normal Aofu WR is a bit fast and has very liberal corner cutting, which I do think the corner cutting of this one is not really compromised. I just tension it a little bit tighter and I put core corner magnet, so it makes the outer layer much more similar to the inner, and overall this cube is just really controllable, really nice, and it's still quite fast. A little bit slow now because the loop has settled and I've been practicing mostly 3x3 and 6x6, so this cube doesn't get a lot of break-in this month, but I will probably do a bunch of solves. Probably about 5 or 6 solves would be enough to speed this cube back up to its main, like, to its regular speed, and it should be ready for comp. The other cube that I'm using is the Meilong 4. This one is a little bit more stable than the Aofu WM, and it's also a bit lighter. But at the same time, it turns with a bit more friction and it has worse corner cutting. But the Meilong 4 has actually seen quite a lot of use because I mainly use it as a travel cube, but when it comes to competitions, it becomes my warm-up cube as well, because, like, when I've submitted my Aofu WR to the scramblers, I would be practicing and solving on my Meilong 4. 5x5, I use the legendary Angstrom 12M. This one is basically core corner magnetized Angstrom WM, but the corners have rod magnets that stick very far into the cube, and like the shell that holds the core magnets is much smaller. So original idea is I wanted the attraction point to be nearer to the core, so the core magnets would attract from a wider angle. But something else that happened was the tips of all the corner magnets are so close that the corners repel. I do get a bit of repulsion boost, so when this cube is crossing 45, it speeds up a bit. It doesn't have, like, ridiculous auto alignment, but I do think this one is quite a reliable cube and it's really fast as well. While 5x5 isn't really an event in NTU Welcome 2023, for the rest of the comps that I've been to in 2022 itself, like, I brought my VOG 5 with me for similar reasons as my Meilong 4, so whenever my Ultron was getting scrambled by the scramblers, I'm warming up on this cube. And I've also used this as a travel cube quite a fair bit. For 6x6, I used an Aofu WR with core corner magnets. Probably going to be the first competition I'm using this cube. So, like, for the other competitions earlier in 2022, I actually used these two, which are a Shadow V2 with core corner magnets, and not my original Aofu GTS, but this is a second Aofu GTS I got via trading with Anyi. I actually gave him my MG66 and got one Aofu GTS back, and this one was really nice. It's way better than my original one, even though my original one has core corner magnets and this one doesn't. This one is actually more stable and it's also really reliable. I actually got to a point in one competition where my hands were shaking and I felt that my Shadow V2 was too soft and too unstable. Then I just used this one. for like round 1, and then round 2 I went back to using this one. But overall, however, I do think this one is the best of both worlds because it's more stable than the Aofu WR, and it's obviously smaller and lighter than the Shadow V2. For 7x7, I have two Aofu WRMs. This one is a prototype cube with extra magnets and also core corner magnetized, whereas this is just the final mass-produced cube with no mods done to it, just loop and setup. So overall, between the two, I do think this one is a little bit more stable and more reliable. Really bad. Non-WCA bigcubes. This is a Florian-modded Tiansheng Galaxy 8. I do think the Florian mod did improve the reverse corner cutting compared to the original cube, but it's still a really stiff and solid feeling cube. So of course the good thing is stability, but the bad thing is transitioning between layers requires you to be more exact, and the cube just feels a bit more stuck together. Still an improvement over my previous main though, because like the MF8 is even more solid and rigid than this one.
Nice. PD, right?
Spring compressed magnetized G9x9. So the original cube is a lot slower, but the spring compression sped this cube up a lot. Probably this is likely the most spring compressed cube that I've ever done, because in every cube that I've spring compressed, I usually compress the springs shorter than the original length by 1mm, but this one, the springs went down by 2mm from 16 all the way down to 14mm, and they make the cube way nicer to use. It's like super fast, it's more flexible than the Tiansheng cubes, and I do think the transitioning between layers is a lot better. And I've also tightened this cube much more than the stock tension to prevent it from popping, but it's still, I do think this one pops the most out of all three of my non-WCA big cubes. I would say popping is really the only negative thing I can say about this. Other than that, it's a really nice cube, and I've dropped my 9x9 timings quite a lot with this one. For 10x10, I'm probably still going to officially call the Meilong 10 my main, even though I've tried the Tiansheng 10M before, but I'm not totally sold on getting the Tiansheng 10 because I don't do 10x10 that much, so I don't really think it's worth it for me to buy an entire new cube when my current cube is still pretty good. The Meilong 10 is actually a lot faster and much harder to pop than the Tiansheng 10. Like, the Tiansheng 10 probably pops like once every solve, while my Meilong 10 has given me like a grand total of 0 pops on its current setup. Of course, I can still solve the Tiansheng 10 faster than the Meilong, because I think mainly because the size is much smaller, and plus I do think it transitions between layers a bit better, but the Meilong 10 is also still a really nice cube to turn and use, and probably if I do decide to do 10x10 once in a while, I think this one is quite, it fulfills the purpose like good enough. Finally, we have the honorable mention. These are my top 2 flagship products of 2022. The Seal May 4x4 and the Seal C 5x5. So this is probably the world's first Maglev 4x4. This cube just broke the limitations of the alignment mechanism, and it actually managed to reap the benefits of Maglev, including the non-contactness of the Mag. Likewise for the 5x5, this one is probably one of the first Maglev 5x5s in the world. I don't think it's absolutely the first, but it's at least the first one to be designed around Maglev rather than having Maglev to be incorporated in